Hello, everyone. This is Ed Bruniger, and these are the first conversations that I had with some of the people who were guests on the Eddie Network podcast. Today's guest is Andrea Clough, the engineer whisperer. And this was a really unique conversation. I asked her, so what do you want to do? What do you want to talk about? She says, I'd like to ask you the questions. And so she did. And it's really fantastic. And at the end of it, as you will hear, she challenged me. And you can see how that challenge was expressed through the Eddie Network over the course of the remaining months of 2023. And it's why there are 54 people who were interviewed last year that I had never met before. And these were the podcast was our first conversation. So this is an example of what is possible. This is an example of what you can do. And I think it's worth your time to listen to this episode of the Eddie Network podcast with my guest, Andrea Clough. See you later. Bye-bye. Hello, everyone. This is Ed Bruniger, and welcome to the Eddie Network podcast. And my guest today is Andrea Clough. And she is a coach with a very unique clientele of engineers. So it's fascinating. But she's also a person who likes to ask questions. So I'm going to let her introduce herself, and then she's going to ask the first question. And we'll see where we go. I have no idea what she's going to say, but this is going to be a lot of fun. I'm glad you're here, Andrea. I'm grateful for you. And let me also say that we were introduced to one another by Rex Williams, who was one of my guests on the podcast back in the winter. So we have a mutual friend, and that's how we got together. So welcome, Andrea.
Thank you. Allow me for being here. Nice to meet you, Ed.
Good to see you.
And I'm going to maybe do the shortest introduction you've ever had. I'm just going to say, hi, yes, I'm Andrea. And I've received a gift from a very good friend who gave me this tagline, the Engineer Whisperer. So I'm Andrea, the Engineer Whisperer.
Oh, I like that a lot. So I'm going to ask you a question because that promote. I mean, let me ask you this question about that, and then you can follow up.
Okay.
So you're talking to engineers, and what is it that engineers need to hear? If you're whispering to them, what are you whispering? What do they need to hear from you?
Themselves.
Okay.
There's something that about engineers where they've been putting a lot of people in front of themselves to get where they are, maybe by pleasing others, by doing everything right, by trying to be perfect, by listening to everyone else, by meeting expectations, by, the list goes on. And that maybe it's because they learned, it's a learned skill, they learn to hide themselves. And one of the things that they learn is to hide their own inner wisdom, that voice inside of us who is on our side. It's the best friend voice, who, when you can do something, says, no, you can, just go for it. It will be okay. Give it a try. It's okay to be different. It's okay to do something differently. It's okay to speak up now. It's okay to say what you want to say. So I think that is what is the most valuable whispering that I do, is I listen to engineers and I reflect back on what they said, or ask them some curious questions that helps them then pause and go in this unknown territory for some of them that starts with the door. Imagine a door and it's on the door, the unknown, and the key is the sentence, I don't know. So the most beautiful thing for me is when I speak with an engineer or a group of engineers, when someone's admit willing to admit and commit to this feeling of, oh, I don't know. I don't know that. Well, you just asked, I never thought, never ever crossed my mind. And then to kind of sit on the edge or stand on the edge of their knowledge and be okay with, oh yeah, I don't have an answer right now. But it doesn't feel so bad as others, society has talking about it, that when you're on the edge of your knowledge, yeah, it's a scary place. With me, when we're together, it's a place where you can see opportunities, where looking at the other side or looking down, if we're talking about a big gap in nature visual, and then you sit on the edge. And I mean, have you been to the Grand Canyon, Ed? Have
Yes,
you
many
have you
times.
have you have you walked to the edge of the canyon?
Yes.
So that's the place where I like to hang out with engineers, is this amazing, vast, magical, almost impossible place like the Grand Canyon, and to just sit on the edge and be okay sitting there because of what you see from the edge. It opens up something that you cannot see unless you go to the edge.
Wow. I like that. I like that a lot.
So what's a moment for you? What has been a moment in your life, Ed, when you were at an edge like this, the edge of your knowledge? And who was there with you? So make it a two-part question.
Well, I'm going to describe that edge as um, a point of transition, and I've been in those points of transition, and probably the most significant one was a decade ago, and I experienced three losses. The recession had come and gone, and I had lost most of my consulting practice. Most of my clients had left me, and it was clear to me that they weren't coming back. And I had taken on the I was on the board of a nonprofit, and it was a really small one, and we had decided we were going to raise some money, and we needed someone to become the executive director. So I became the executive director, and so my consulting practice was failing; it was dying. 18 months into leading this nonprofit, I was fired because I expected the board to raise money. I expected the board to give money. I expected the board to give me names of people to go ask for money. None of that happened. And in the middle of that, my marriage of 30 years ended. So I had these three losses, and I had to decide, what am I going to do? My life was not over. I was in my late 50s, and I had begun my career as a minister. I was still a minister, but I was doing leadership work. And within less than a week of being fired, I was called to see if I would become the interim pastor of a small church. And I said, I have nothing else to do, so sure, I'll go do that. And I got to this church and found that they had been in a very abusive relationship with a former pastor. And I said to them, why don't we just hang out together? You've been through some trauma. I've been through some trauma. We don't need to pressure ourselves into doing something. Let's just hang out together. And these people loved me and cared for me. And I was there for 2 years, but after a year, I realized I was going to need to move on. And so it took another year to put them in a position where they were ready for the next person to come. And at that point in time, I said, the question was, if I'm going to do something with the rest of my life, I'm going to have to move. And so I picked up and moved to Wyoming. And I did that without any more thought than I just expressed to you. And that started a series of transitions that has led to today. And I'm in a continuing state of transitioning to whatever it is I'm going to be tomorrow. And there are lots of people who have been part of that, and I'm grateful to all of them. So, that's the, so I've, and that, in using your metaphor, I have lived on the edge all this time, and I've been looking down in that deep Grand Canyon and identifying, the places on the horizon that I want to be.
I love that you said where you want to be. Part of the work that I do with engineers is transition, and one of them, I think one of the most powerful questions is to ask someone and then to ask yourself is, who do I want to become? Not just what do I want to do, but who do I want to become? Who am I choosing to be? Because when it's intentional, and when, as you said, part of transition is letting go of something, your old identity, your old ways that got you here, in a way that you can celebrate that they got you here, and then to be empowered to answer that question. Okay, who do I want to be now? And then how do I begin becoming that person? So I love how for you that was, I'm gonna move. That's my beginning.
Mm-hmm.
And then from there, I'm gonna choose to live on the edge and explore the edge. And to use the Grand Canyon, there's a lot of edge to explore there. There's a lot of territory too.
Well, here's the thing, and I think this is important. I picked up and moved without a plan of what I was going to do, and it took several months to accomplish this. And I moved all my things. Then I came back to North Carolina because I had a project that I had to finish here. I had some family events to take care of. When all that was done, I went back to Wyoming. And the first week I was there, I went to, there was a startup group, a nonprofit that focused on people who want to start up businesses. And I had been to these kinds of things before. So I go to this meeting, it was on a Monday. And, and this is like the first week of me being settled into this new life. And I meet this woman, and she says, "Oh, so you're new here. What are you going to do?" I said, "I don't know." She says, "Well, we have this leadership program called the Startup Institute. Why don't you come join us?" And it's a 10-week program. We meet 3 days a week, and you can figure out what you're going to do. I said, "Okay, I think I'll do that. When does it start?" She said, "Tomorrow morning." I said, "Okay, I'll see you there." And
this is so fascinating that it's almost like a paradigm that most people don't think about.
Yeah.
That the doing doesn't come first. It's the being comes first.
Yeah.
It's the deciding that you move, that's a transaction. Going somewhere, that's a transaction. Before that, we decide that we are going to be that person who's going to step out of our comfort zone, who's going to be adventurous and risk taker, who's going to be kind and listening, who's going to be these things, so that when an opportunity shows up, like this lady offered it to you, you don't need to think twice about it. It's a yes, because the flow has started, like the flywheel,
Yeah.
used for engineers, has already took off. And it starts with that inner commitment to ourselves of really being clear of what we want. I mean, I love in your story where you were also clear of what you don't want. And sometimes that's how it starts, our path to knowing what we want, by first figuring out what we don't want in our life. Let's not stop there. Let's continue into what we want, because the what we want comes with this amazing energy that literally takes you out, from one city to another one, from one district to another one, from one job into another one, from one company into another one, and sometimes from one company into starting your own company, your own business. And when we're paying attention to that energy, like a flywheel, that energy can just keep going and going and going. In your metaphor, you're keep exploring the edge and staying there. For some people, it manifests differently. It's paying attention to that energy that drives us, that comes with, of course, a lot of fears, and at the same time, a lot of curiosity and creativity, and noticing things and saying yes and accepting no's and being okay with all this. And in all this, having a smile like you, that's one of the things that I like about you is, people say positive attitude. Well, I can show you positive attitude, but that doesn't mean that I feel inside positive. So it's the genuine smile that someone has when, one of my stories is we went camping with my family, I think 2 years ago. We just started off, and we were a little bit off where we didn't make it to the first night. We didn't make it to where we wanted to go. So we literally, my husband and I in the front, the kids in the back. So we're talking like, okay, we don't have a plan. I don't think we can make it where we wanted to go. So where are we going to spend the night? So he's like, well, there are a few campsites along this road. Let's just see if we find something. And we went to the first one and drove around, nothing. We went to the second one. I think we were pulling into the third one where we're like, okay, there's either gonna be a spot here, or are we just gonna drive and that's it. So we pull into this third one, and as soon as it was a drive around, you drive around the road, a circle. So we go to the right, and as soon as we go to the right, there was an opening. I mean, we're both of us so surprised, like that my husband didn't stop where, in front of the open spot. He pulled a little bit further and stopped because we were so surprised. And we looked at each other like, there's a spot there. It was so unbelievable. So we were all our eye contact, like, should I, like back in? Are we taking this? Is that real? And in these few seconds, literally few seconds of us looking at each other, what are we gonna do? Because finally we found what we were looking for, and we were so surprised. There was this little car who showed up behind us, and there was enough space for this car to pull into that spot. So now, when my husband, he's putting it in reverse, and then we see the red car, and I remember the moment looking at him. His face is changing. He's thinking, okay, how am I going to respond to this one? And then I'm looking at him, and then my eyes went back, and I caught my son's eye, because he was looking diagonal for me, and his eyes were, signaling to me, I'm really watching you, Mom. Like, how are you going to respond now? Like, what is there a monster going to come out? Like, what is going to happen now? And I remember that moment having this, okay, I have a second to decide how I'm going to respond. And it was, I just laughed it off. I looked at my husband like, well, that wasn't the spot for us.
Yep.
That wasn't for us. And, he was shocked that I didn't, like, I don't know, come out of myself and be mad and da 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 da. And my son was like, wow, she's like, everybody was shocked at my response. Parentheses, I can have other responses. I am how to say, very opinionated in seeking justice when I want to. Just leave it at that.
Okay.
But at this point, I just laughed it off. Life moves on. That person got the spot. It wasn't for us, obviously. And so my husband, again, very okay with my energy there, took on the energy and said, yeah, okay, let's keep driving. And literally we went around and halfway in the circle, we found the spot. And that was way better. It was closer to the bathroom. As soon as after we parked and everything, we talked and like, yeah, this is definitely better than the one that we just drove by. So talking about energy, this
Yeah.
is the energy that we carry with us every minute of our life. How we respond to things that show up or don't show up, or other people's behavior in our life, is what really, for me, in my point of view, creates it's the difference between a good life and the best life that I can live. So why don't we go for the best life when we have that choice?
I think it's because we don't know what the best life is, because we're so used to living with the fear of missing out, FOMO, or the fear of failing, or the fear of being humiliated. We have all these fears, and when and the largest fear is really that I'm not able to manage the change that I'm going to have to go through in this. I think that's where people really feel a lot of stress, and so they seek to stay the same because they feel like it's safe and it's secure, when it's really not. It's highly risky, because then they lose control of their circumstances. And let's say they choose not to change jobs. Let's say they choose not to change jobs because they want to stay where they are because it's comfortable, and they're used to it. But then all of a sudden, the company gets sold or something happens, and their department gets redundant, and all of a sudden they're out of a job. So instead of constantly looking for the opportunity to advance oneself, they are now trying to start from scratch at a critical moment where things are very quite difficult. And so I think that's part of what goes on. And for me, it was, I'm just going to say yes to everything that comes to me. And that was something I learned 24 years ago, and we were off as a family. We were at a dude ranch in Jackson Hole, Wyoming. Wyoming keeps coming up because it's a favorite place of mine. And we were out. I was 4 years into being a leadership consultant, and we were on the adult ride, and we were out in the mountains, and we come around the bend, and they're the Grand Tetons there before us. And I heard a voice, and the voice said, it's time to stop talking about leadership and lead. And, I heard it was clear, it was unambiguous, whether that's God or someone else, wherever that came from, it was really clear that I was supposed to hear that. And it meant that whatever was placed before me, I was going to say yes to. and um, within 6, 7 months, the leadership of my son's Boy Scout troop was placed before me as really the only one who could take it on. And it began one of the best seasons of my life, as I learned actually how to lead because I had people that worked with me. And so I think it's being able to say yes all
And
the
I'm going to
time.
stop you because it started with listening. Whatever that voice was, yours,
Yes,
God's, it
yes.
started with listening. So we're going back in the circle. I started with listening to your own voice, the importance of that, of creating a space for it, finding the space for it, seeking out the space for it, whichever you do right now in your life. Everybody has a choice. It's right in front of us. It takes that commitment to ourselves first, that I am going to listen.
Mm-hmm. And you were listening to the countenance of your son in the car. You looked at him and you listened. You saw what he was saying without saying the words,
Yes,
and you heard what he was saying to you. And,
yes,
and I really love that, because you are saying to him, you are more important than my fear of not having a place for us to camp tonight.
yes, yes. I also knew that if I respond a different way, he's gonna remember.
Yeah.
Like, this is a leadership opportunity for me to show him another way, a different way to choose to live.
Yeah.
I was very intentionally role modeling that you can laugh this off. You can still have everything that you want, even if right now it seems like that it's taken. Right now, in that moment, it seemed that that car took everything that we wanted. Right? I could have gone into this depressed, traumatic moment and put myself into become a victim. And I remember in his eyes seeing this curiosity of, which one are you going to choose, mom? Or what are you, I guess what, I don't know if she had, options for me, but it's what are you going to choose? Show me. It was this energy of, I want to learn, what does someone do in this situation? Because I don't know what to do.
Mm-hmm.
And that was such an inspiration for me in that moment of, yes, what does someone do? Well, there's no someone here. There's me. I am the leader. I am the one who makes the choice right now. Does this apply to your own life? I think so. It really, I've been believing this and taking this on since I was a very, very young child, of knowing that I can re-engineer my life. Doesn't matter how poor I was, in the environment that I was in, how poor we were, what my parents were working or not working, what they had, what we didn't have. It didn't matter. Situations like that really are our teachers to choose us. So in that moment, I chose me, and I wanted to be a fun mom, a fun wife, and a fun person who started on this fun family trip. I didn't want to ruin it for everyone. I didn't want to ruin it for me.
So you let go.
I did. I let go of the anger that showed up, the feeling of injustice, of maybe the feeling of I deserved that spot for some reason. So yeah, all those, I let go of all those other voices in my head or behaviors, previous learned behaviors that I saw others do in the society, in the environment that I was growing up. Yes, I chose to be in alignment with to behave in alignment with who I chose to be.
And this is what you remember of that moment in time. And if you had responded in the way that maybe the family expected you to respond, it wouldn't be remembered for this. It would be remembered as just another moment of whatever it would be, disappointment
Yes.
maybe. But
Yes.
now you remember this as I was different than I expected myself to be. And I like that. I like being different. I like being different. I want to be different than maybe what other people think I should be. Or I want to be different so that my son will appreciate me more. And what better motivation than to do that? Because because you're saying, I love you, son, and I want to be not just the best mother I can be, I want to be the best person I can be for you.
Yes.
And he'll remember that. He'll remember that. And yeah, because yeah. What is it? What's the saying? It's not what we do for people, is how we make them feel that they remember.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's something
Yes.
like that.
Yes.
Yeah,
Well,
it's interesting. You got any more questions?
you told me about your childhood, that you had the freedom to do what you wanted to do.
Yeah.
I want you to go back to that time.
Okay.
And I'm curious, what was back then, the craziest thoughts that you remember, the craziest want that you wanted as a child?
I would okay, we're gonna go, let's say between 5 and 7 or 8 years of age. And I could walk out the door and I could go play with my buddies and we could just roam the neighborhood and nobody would ever know us. Know it, and we did, we did crazy things. Like we had a big pine tree next to the house and I would climb the tree and get up on the roof. I mean, I'm 7 years old, 7 years old. So I'm a little kid, and I'm climbing trees and climbing on the roof, and we had storm drains on our street, and we would climb to the storm drains, and the older boys would come along and they would say, "Well, you know that when the city hears that there are children in the storm drains, they turn the water on and flush them out." you know, and we just did what we wanted, and we had adventure. We had adventure in our souls, so to speak, and I was allowed to walk to school and walk home from school, just a mile and a half, something like that. I had to cross a major street, and my parents trusted me. I don't know if they were consciously trusting me. They just let it happen. And what I took away from that is that we're all born for discovery and adventure, and to learn by experience, and that's what I was able to do, and and it's kind of been a theme all through my life. So I want to discover.
But what was the biggest thing that you wanted to discover even at that age?
I wanted to discover the entire world. I wanted to see the bigness of it. And you know, and when I was a kid, I mean, we're talking about the early 60s. This is before cable television, obviously before the internet. And so the only information that came into our home was from the three national news or the three national broadcast networks and the state's educational network on our television. And we would get a morning newspaper and an afternoon newspaper, and that's all we would get. And my mother would take me every week to the library, the downtown library, and I would check out books. And I would read books about people and history. I'd read sports books and military history books and books on science. I mean, the two books I remember that stuck with me were a book about the Wright brothers and their invention of the plane. Oh, they were the Wright Flyer, and then reading a book about Marie Curie, who was a hero to me. I loved her story, and I love her story to today. And I think it's because it's people who are deciding they're going to discover something that hasn't been found yet. And I think there is this mindset out there that everything that is needed to be known is known now. There's nothing more to discover. The frontier is closed. I mean, there was this goes back 125 years to the idea that the western frontier of America was closed. Everything that was needed to be known was known, and now we're going to move into the industrial age of America across the America. Well, I don't agree with that. You know, I think there's still much to be discovered. There's much to be discovered in space. There's much to be discovered if you get off the interstate highways and go off on the back roads.
Yes.
And
you're talking like my husband.
And you get lost. To go intentionally get lost and find your way. And I do that. So it's that kind of this kind of attitude of, okay, I want to learn things. And so now I see something online, or I hear someone speak something, or I'm at a coffee shop or a bar or something, and someone says something, and I've never heard of that before. And so I'm pulling up my phone and I'm Googling that. I'm looking for a Wikipedia on that and say, oh, okay. And then I'm going to Amazon and I'm ordering 2 books on that topic because I want to know. But this is the next dimension of that. I don't want to know just because I want to know. I want to know so that I can talk to that person intelligently and identify with the things that they care about. I want to care about the same things that they care about. And that's really the underlayment of the floor of my life, which is I want to understand so that I can relate to people. And so it's all led to what we're doing right now, which is this podcast. And so this is where I get to have these conversations with people like you and you with me, because we're talking about things that matter to us. I mean, and some of these people, like I did an interview this morning with a guy that I had never met before. I just saw that he had written a book. I thought the book looked interesting. I ordered the book. I contacted, said, would you come on and talk about your book? And before we, there goes my phone. Before we began the podcast, we introduced each other to one another. And at the end of that podcast, we said, this has begun a friendship that will matter to us for a long time. So that's what's behind what I was doing as a 6-year-old, climbing trees and climbing on my roof and crawling through storm drains in order to discover what's in the world.
And to connect to what's in the world.
And to connect with
as
a,
you said, the books are just a pathway
that's right.
to connect with someone, not to gain
That's
more
exactly right.
knowledge and to become, yeah, the knowledge expert. But it's to connect to that person in this way, in this unknown way where, yeah, you gain the knowledge. And then there's this possibility to gain the friendship with someone, to gain a connection with someone that we never had before, and find out more about them. And then through that relationship to find out really more about ourselves.
So you
So
are,
Ed, I would like to challenge you. I
okay.
don't know if any of your guests have challenged you, but I am bold, and I would like to challenge you that next time, use your example, you hear something that you don't know about, instead of ordering a book and learning and reading about it, I challenge you to go to that person and tell them that you just said this and this and this, and I heard you. So acknowledge that you heard them, and then ask them to tell you about that,
Well, I
to
do. I
learn
do that.
through them.
I see the books as supplemental. I don't see, I see that the initiation of the initiation of a relationship is asking the question you're saying.
Okay. So then my challenge is to cut down the time when you initiate the conversation. Because maybe what I'm hearing, that you're giving yourself this time to, okay, I need to learn about this. I need to read a little bit more about it before
It's
I
not long.
initiate.
There's a very short period of time. And it may be nothing more than an article, a Wikipedia, or it's only enough to understand what I need to ask them in order to initiate the conversation.
Okay, so then my challenge is still standing.
Okay.
I want to challenge you to go into the next conversation where you don't understand. So maybe that's the key,
Okay. Okay.
to get you out of the comfort zone where you are aware that you don't understand
Okay.
right now,
I take
and
your challenge on.
see
Welcome.
what happens.
I welcome your challenge and I'll take it on.
All right.
And when I have fulfilled my mission, as Andrea has defined it, I'll come back to you and we'll talk about it.
I'd love to. I'd love to see what just what happens.
Yeah.
No attachment, no expectations here, Ed. Just
Oh, I
playing
know
with the
that. I know that.
universe.
It's all the expectations are all internal. And I think it's a great point. And I accept it graciously.
Thank you. Thank you.
So do we have anything else to talk about? Do you have anything else that you would like to say? Would you like um would you like to say anything to the engineers that may be listening? And because we have met because of an engineer, Rex Williams,
Yes.
who's at Boeing, and it was because of Rex that I got in to do some training at Boeing, and I could tell you that it was so much fun. It's so much fun working with engineers. So I'm envious of you in that regard. So anything you want to say to engineers or say about engineers that can close off our conversation today in a really at a high mark?
Engineers, it is time to stop hiding. It is time to get on the journey to find out who you really are. What are those parts of you that you love about yourself, that have always been there as a small child? And those are your talents. Those are the ones that give you energy to drive you to create the impact that you always wanted to create. And you happen to be an engineer, but you are an amazing human being. So it's time to choose to live life differently and to find out how you can bring your whole self in front of everyone, not just in front of the mirror when you look in the mirror in the morning and at night. It's time to create the impact that you always wanted.
Wow. That's fantastic. That's really great. Andrea, it's been one of the best podcasts I've had, and I'm thankful to you for being who you are and being as flexible as you are in allowing this conversation to be what it has been. And I look forward to coming back to you and having another one with you and to tell you about what my experience has been. And it may be tomorrow. I mean, I got an event to go to tonight where this may be the moment.
Well, let the universe do its magic. I believe in it. So I'm looking forward to it. Grateful for the invitation to be here. Grateful to spend the time with you, to be in your presence, and to listen.
And I feel the same thing as well. Well, everyone, you've seen an extraordinary interaction between two people who didn't know each other really before today, but now we've had a significant encounter with one another, and you can have this same kind of encounter if you choose. And you listen and maybe follow Andrea's advice and ask a question. It initiates an inquiry into why people do a certain thing. You can do that if you choose to, and all you need is the will to do it in this moment. So thank you for watching. If you have a question or if you have a comment, please leave it with us so we can respond to you. And please subscribe and like as well so that you can follow along what the Eddy Network podcast is doing. And I'm grateful for your being here, and thank you, Andrea, for being here. And I look forward to seeing you again real soon, and we'll see you all next time at the Eddy Network podcast. Bye-bye.